Yes! Oh, I'm so
Very
glad
satisfying.
that worked. That was extremely satisfying. Yeah.
You guys, in a departure, we'll be drinking red wine tonight because the episode was very hard to watch.
Also, it's chilly here.
And it's cold, and Allison knows my boyfriend is the Ironstone Petite Sirah, which she kindly brought to me tonight.
It's delish. Mm-hmm. I feel like the worst possible song to have stuck in my head right now is the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend parody of The Farmer and the Cowman from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I had seen the episode before, Julie had not. We watched it together. It's a difficult watch. Mm-hmm. And we get done, and all of a sudden I don't want to spoil the Crazy Ex song for anyone. So the Oklahoma version is, oh, the farmer and the cowman should be friends. Oh, the farmer and the cowman should be friends. One man likes to push a plow, the other likes to chase a cow, but that's no reason why they can't be friends. Territory folks should stick together. This is the bit. Territory folks should all be pals. Farmers dance with the plowman's daughter, cowman dance with the ranger's gal.
Wait. Have we passed the 15-second mark? Do we owe Rodgers and Hammerstein money now?
Welcome to Outlander, Jocasta Outlander podcast. I'm Allison.
I'm Julie. There's no Janine this week.
There's no Janine this week.
Sorry, he's very tired.
Janine being the mensch that he is, he was going to get off of a plane at O'Hare and come directly here. I don't know why neither one of us said, don't do that.
No, bro.
It just didn't occur. I mean, I think, frankly, the man deserves a drink. I thought maybe he would want to join us, but he rightly today emailed and was like, I can't.
I'm too tired.
So we're on our own today. Julie has set a timer. We'll see.
Well, I just did what Janine always does just so we can keep an eye on it. But
no, it's good. It's good. But, we tend to we just blow right past nap time, as Buster Bluth would say.
Yep.
So we'll see. We're going to try really hard to stay on task. We today are talking about season 4, episode 2 of Outlander, Do No Harm.
Right.
An episode that is probably going to make some, let's say, book loyalists who don't like adaptations. I don't know. It's pretty mad. Mm-hmm. But which I think is very well done. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe we're going to spend the majority of this episode talking about the really difficult stuff. So I wonder if we should get the fact that they cut the Mountain Man ball sack surgery out of the way now.
I feel robbed. Frankly, it's very sad to me that I didn't get to see Hagrid's fucking hernia surgery.
Hagrid's hernia. Yeah, it feels weird to talk about any of the minor stuff, but maybe we should just get it all out of the way. Mm-hmm. So here's one that John Quincy Myers, played by Kyle Reese,
got it,
who I think does a very nice job.
Mm-hmm. Do we see him again? Yeah, I'm gonna guess. Okay.
Yeah, he isn't like a figure that looms insanely large in the books, but he will be back soon.
Okay.
I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned this last week. I've seen the first 6. You can read my very general, non-specific thoughts, since we weren't allowed to talk about fucking anything, at rogerebert.com.
Were you supposed to do the official opening thing where we say something about the Outlander, the Stars show Outlander? Is that a thing that you have to do now or no?
Do I do that?
I don't know. You did. I think you did last week.
The Stars series Outlander. We're talking about the Stars series Outlander.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Neil, are you taking in your headphones to take a poop?
This is where they go.
Okay.
They're Bluetooth.
I assumed. But are they poo-tooth?
Yeah! Up top.
Oh, the farmer and the cowman should be friends.
There'll be a big dump in here, though.
Okay, have fun.
Great.
He's about to just do...
He's just going to rip it up. So we shall pay the price.
The Star Series Outlander season 4 episode 2. Do no harm.
Got it. But we were talking about Hagrid's hernia and how you missed it.
I did. It's, have to cut things. That's how book adaptations work. And here's a secret for those of you who don't read the books. They just get longer. Written in My Own Heart's Blood is like a really, like, as a murder weapon, it has a lot of promise.
Like if it's by your front door, just keep it there in case you open the door and it's a stranger.
Boom, right in the face.
Okay.
It's
Is that
a
the
hefty
newest one?
book. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, apparently, the word is 2019, next Outlander book.
And is it
Not announced yet, but
is the next one the final one?
no.
Oh, it's going to keep going, huh?
Yeah.
So I'm fucking just trapped. I'm kidding. You guys, I love you.
Hashtag blessed.
Blast.
Hashtag humble
blast.
and blessed.
Blast.
Yeah. Anyway, so in the books, if you don't want to be spoiled on events of a book you're watching a TV show, then skip it. I don't know.
I just gotta
this
tell
isn't
you,
a fucking spoiler.
by
It would have been in this
point,
episode.
I just have
would
to
have been in
believe that
this
our
episode.
audience understands that
I don't
this
know.
is going to
I had
happen.
somebody get mad at me at the AV Club last week because I did a What's On Tonight that the title was The Walking Dead says happy trails to Rick Grimes. It was fucking national news
That was all.
that
was on
Andrew Lincoln was leaving
everywhere.
The Walking Dead. It was everywhere. AMC was like Rick Grimes' final episodes for weeks.
Yes.
It was
I don't
national
even
news.
watch the show
Somebody
when
was
I knew
like,
that was
spoiler
happening. Oh,
in the headline
fuck
and in the
that
picture.
person.
And here's the real kicker of it. The picture was of a thing that had happened in the previous episode. It was like the biggest TV news. This person was like, I managed to avoid it everywhere but here. It's like, is the AV Club the only site you visit?
How do you have a job where you're not on the motherfucking
I don't.
internet?
It was fucking everywhere. Anyway,
sorry.
point being,
I
if
have
you
very
really
little
don't want to know about
patience for
about
that
the
shit.
John Quincy Myers introduction in the books, then I guess skip ahead like 2 minutes. But anyway,
or 10.
So I
Because I
told
want to
Julie
dig
this.
around this hernia surgery.
It's great. So John Quincy Myers, he's going to bring them to Riverrun. He meets them in town before they're going to Riverrun because they go to Riverrun and spend like what little money they have left on clothes so they won't look like hobos. And he meets them there. Like, oh, I happen to know your aunt, whatever, and they have a nice chat. And he's like Mountain Man Santa, basically, as you see in the show.
He's Yukon Cornelius.
He's totally Yukon Cornelius. He's like Haggard plus Yukon Cornelius plus Trader Joe. I don't know.
Trapper. Well, I was going to say Trapper John MD, but that's a completely different thing.
Well, and so
It's
is
a
Trader
doctor.
Joe, actually. The funny thing is I was thinking like, God, I don't know. Some fucking Paul Bunyan.
There you go.
Right? But instead I thought Lewis Carroll, which is not correct.
Very different.
He wrote, he wrote
Alice in Wonderland and the
through the
Jabberwocky.
looking glass. Anyway, so they meet Myers and he's like, wait, you're a doctor?
Look at this thing.
I've got this thing in between my fucking legs where my nutsack is. It looks like I've grown a third ball. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm paraphrasing to the best of my recollection. He really is like, it looks like I grew a third nut. It's really weird. Claire's like, well, that sounds like a hernia. He's like, okay, well, can you help me, doc? She says, well, sure, but we're going to need to like plan this. You know, it's going to have to be sterile environment. We're going to have to get you drunk because I don't have anything to put you unconscious. So you're going to have to just be wasted. And then, yeah, we'll figure it out eventually. He's like, great. Thanks, lady. Then Jocasta throws this party.
Is it this party in the book?
Yeah.
Funny.
And all of a sudden,
Boy, I would have loved to have seen that.
tense moment, door flies open. There's John Quincy Myers just
Schnackered.
like shit house wasted, like off his nut, 3 nuts wasted. And he's like,
And that's hard because that's a tripod.
Claire,
That's like balanced.
I'm here. I did what you said. I'm real drunk. Let's cut open my ball sack. And then Claire is like, oh, and then he falls on the table and passes out. Claire's like, okay,
right, let's do
so we're
this.
doing this. And then gets like really into it and is like, syringe, scalpel.
Actually,
cloths.
that's interesting. I'm going to fast forward a little bit into the episode, even though it's a much more somber kind of version of it. You told me that in the books, the thing that happens to Rufus happens out in the field, but here it happens on the table. So it's kind of like they took that
A little.
But
But
it's
she's
obviously
not
way more somber.
showboating,
No, she's not
right?
showboating, but she is into the surgery aspect of it. But
Yes.
it's just a different mindset.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
But it is on the table, like it's on the table
Yep.
here. I mentioned in our Slack channel for people who are on the old Patreon that occasionally it feels a little bit like the show is trolling book readers. This isn't an instance of that per se, but it's kind of similar in that it feels like they're nodding to this other thing that happens in having her perform this surgery on Jocasta's big, beautiful dinner table.
Right.
Anyway, what I'm saying is I miss when Claire slices open a dude's nutsack at a party.
As a party trick.
Yeah, it's a pretty good party trick.
That is really good. I mean, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I miss that.
Okay.
There are some weird parties at Jocasta's, man. There's a later party at Jocasta's.
Like weird, like Eyes Wide Shut weird, or
A little.
no way.
Well, this particular one I was about to tell you about. There's a party at Jocasta's where a character gets like a foot massage and has somebody play like This Little Piggy Went to Market on their feet without assuming that it's the person they assume it would be, but then there's actually no evidence that it was that person and it's never revealed.
Wait, are they blindfolded? Is it like a whole
No,
blindfold
it's
mask?
dark. It's a big party, so there are like 15 people sleeping in this room.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like a huge party, so there are guests everywhere.
Are we saying that Aunt Jocasta's freak?
No.
Why is she having these crazy parties?
It's a wedding. It's like a big fucking fancy wedding.
Okay.
Anyway.
But people are
Patty.
playing This Little Piggy in the dark? I mean, that's freaky.
Yeah, it is a little freaky, but it's not Jocasta.
Okay.
She could. I mean, she
couldn't see it anyway.
She would actually be better equipped to locate a person's feet in the dark because it would be like the Audrey Hepburn movie where she's blind.
Wait until dark.
Yes, that. And she would be like, she'd be able to like smell whoever it was.
A foot.
Right? She'd be like, yeah, I got it. This Little Piggy. Anyway, I think we just solved a major book mystery is what I'm saying. Anyway.
Okay.
So there's that. Ian also, if memory serves, Ian also gets skunked in the books. I'm a little bit bummed that didn't happen. Ian is like slightly more hapless in the books. But John Bell is just so fucking
I was going
charming.
to say, I think it might just be because John Bell radiates some kind of like whimsical intelligence. I don't know a better way to say it, that it would be really hard to make him 100%
like
hapless. I love him.
Whimsical intelligence, the John Bell story.
Yes.
Yeah, I was also telling Julie this when we were watching live. I really like that they're making clear how much Ian cares about Claire. Because they haven't known each other that long. And the majority of the time they've known each other, he was a fucking captive on a pirate ship.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like they spend a bunch of QT.
No.
You know what I mean? But
although he is a great, as you said when we were watching it, he probably wasn't as helpful in the surgery scene in the book as he was in this one.
Yeah.
So maybe they just made him slightly smarter.
yeah. But the skunk scene is fun.
Yeah. Has anyone any of our listeners, please respond through social media of your choice or Slack channel or whatever. Has anyone ever been sprayed by a skunk? I have never been sprayed by a skunk, and coming from Arkansas, that is actually a badge of achievement. I have never had a dog get sprayed by a skunk. However, I'm terrified in Rogers Park, Illinois, Chicago, that I'm going to get sprayed by that motherfucking skunk that lives in our neighborhood.
Skunk. Yeah, we have a giant skunk that wanders up to the back gate of the apartment Tom and I live in sometimes.
I can smell him sometimes in the morning.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And I'm just like, what? And it's very clear that it's not weed because sometimes weed smells like a skunk. No, this is way more acrid and like burning nostril-y.
And it's like a little bit like pencil erasers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's a skunk that definitely lives on my street.
Yeah.
I was about to say the name of my street, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, no.
That lives on my street, and I can smell him, and it's weird that I'm in Chicago, and it's like all of a sudden I'm back in Arkansas. So what I'm saying is, has anybody... Urban skunk. Has anyone... Punk skunk? Skapunk? Nah. Has anyone ever been hosed by one, first of all? Secondly, if you were, tell the story, please. That is all.
Skunk urban professional.
Scuppy.
Yes.
Scuppy. We got a Scuppy.
We have a
in our
Scuppy.
neighborhood. He is a professional too, because I haven't heard of anyone getting hosed. So he's just like walking around stinky butt, but like getting his food and going back to his den. He doesn't have time to fuck around with anybody.
I wonder where his den is.
Somewhere nearby, somewhere between our houses. I would have thought it was in that Warren lot that used to be the Rabbit Warren that then got paved over by a certain Catholic university for nobody to park in.
Yeah, it's weird. All right. So I think let's do the summary.
Okay.
Let's do what we normally do, and we'll get to some of the lighter things. I do want to say this. Julie and I, last year, before we really started, in season 3, the first time that Outlander was like, we should probably acknowledge slavery, huh? The show really whiffed it. And so did we, like really hardcore whiffed it. Did not put anywhere near enough thought into what we were saying. We're just like real white ladies about it. And we still happen to be white ladies and are both just going to try really hard to make sure that we're not fucking idiots about this. But hey, if you listen to the show and are not a white lady and you want to talk to us about it, send me a message on Twitter or on our email or I don't know, fucking Facebook, wherever the fuck we can send messages. I don't know where people send messages anymore. Because we would love to hear your thoughts and to talk to somebody who's not us about this episode in particular.
All right.
So here we go. Let's talk about the biggest fucking stain in American history. Well, no, let's call it we've got a couple of things tied. We've got slavery and we've got the just fucking reprehensible way that we treated the people who lived here before we showed up.
Right.
Among other things, we've got a pretty shitty history as a country. But in this case, we're
delving
Outlander
right into
is
this
just
one.
getting right into slavery,
in there.
and they did a much better job this time.
And it looks like, based on the preview of next week's episode, we're getting into the other stain on our country's history. So they're just going to dive right in there. Diana, I have to say, you have all the confidence of a white woman. All right, so the clock, the title card is a clock being wound. It's a beautiful grandfather clock. And since we haven't been to Riverrun yet, we know that this is Aunt Jocasta's beautiful grandfather clock. At first, I was like, what is this going to have to do with the episode? But then, of course, later, it becomes very obvious what it has to do with it. And it is being wound by a slave. So they kind of like bring you in there, like, oh yeah, here we go. We're going to talk about this now. This episode was directed by Julian Holmes and written by a lady,
Karen
right?
Campbell.
Nice. Okay.
And of course, writers' rooms, it's like, who knows who all worked on it. They all worked on it. But she is the credited writer and I think did a really great job. We have, Julian Holmes also directed the last episode. I think maybe we're getting another one from him. He also directed an episode of Daredevil, an episode of Iron Fist.
What episode of Daredevil was it? Does it say?
The Perfect Game.
I wonder which one that was. I haven't watched all of it. I've just dropped in on Neil occasionally watching it, and sometimes it's pretty good.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Well, Julian Holmes.
Lots of British TV. Lots of British TV.
I preferred this episode to episode 1. Because it was of more of one story and not more of a setup thing that episode 1 had to be. All right, so for a minute we're on the riverboat.
Hold on, that's what I was going to say. And Karen Campbell has been working on the show for a while as a producer. She also wrote the Creme de Menthe episode, which was a very good one, and Uncharted, which is it's when Claire is Survivor Barbie.
Yeah.
So
half of a good episode.
I think that episode is pretty good. But come on.
Coco's in that episode.
Coco is great.
Father Fog or whatever his name was. Fogden. Well, he was living in a fog. That was pretty funny. I also really liked his.
Come on, remember the fire ants?
Oh my God! No, I remember Survivor Barbie. Don't worry, I remember Survivor Barbie. I just have a bad taste in my mouth for season 3. Like anything that reminds me of it, I get a little sad. So anyway, Patty, let's move forward. So we're treated to the horrible green screen for approximately 30 seconds.
Yeah, really fast, because once we're at Riverrun, no more green screen.
Thank God.
It's beautiful. This set they found is fucking beautiful.
But Jamie is on the boat and he's real sad that they got attacked the night before and that he couldn't do anything about it. And Claire's all like, sorry, they were armed and there were way more of them. So just, let it go. You don't have to protect everybody. And he's like, you're right. And then we're at Riverrun. Aunt Jocasta comes down this big, long walkway directly to the river on the arm of a slave. And at first I was like, that's interesting. And then when Jamie introduces himself, she kind of looks sad about it. And I'm trying to figure out why she looks a little bit strange. And then we realize, and I had no idea,
It's a good moment.
that she's blind.
So, and the way they handle this in the, it takes them a little bit longer to figure it out in the book. I think it's like Claire sort of sees Ulysses like placing things where she knows to reach for them and stuff. Right. But here it's Ian rushes up all fucking delightful.
Whimsically intelligent.
And hands her some flowers and she doesn't do anything. And then Ulysses steps forward and says, "Ma'am, your nephew." In a fucking flawless American accent.
Because we found out that this actor's British?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're almost all the actors they're hiring are, right? But yeah, he was born in 1961 in Clapton, London, England.
Colin McFarlane.
Is
Ulysses' name. Good
Peerless
job.
fucking
But his American accent was real good.
It is really on point.
It's almost always true that British people can do a better American accent than Americans can do British accents.
Oh, I have heard some
are bad. I mean, some
very bad. I mean, David Tennant, y'all know how I'm hold on, I'm just going to pretend to lick the microphone. You know how I feel about David Tennant. Jesus Christ.
Bad.
Oof. He got a little bit better. He's in this terrible HBO show called Camping. And every once in a while, I'm like, that was perfect. That sounded like an actual person. And then the rest of the time, he's like, well, I don't know. Let's go to a campsite. Like that. It's really bad. It's really, really, really bad.
That's horrible.
Andrew Garfield, of Andrew Garfield fame, before he was famous, did an episode of Doctor Who that was set in the United States. And he was supposed to be, I think, from Mississippi. And from Mississippi.
Oh, man, I got a real hard time with the Southern accents in general. That one, for me, is rough when it's a non-native speaker trying to do a Southern accent.
I declare. It's like he watched
Foghorn Leghorn from beginning to end.
Anyway, this one is on fucking point.
It is great.
Peerless.
So we find out that she's blind. I thought, as Allison said, it was kind of an interesting reveal, and I had no idea. Nobody spoiled that for me. It was a surprising surprise. And then we go into Riverrun, and we're chatting, and Claire seems distracted. Allison, why is Claire so distracted?
Well, it's worth mentioning, Julie, that the first shot that we see of Riverrun, there is a little person on the porch sweeping. And that person is a person who is also fucking somebody's property.
Yeah.
Because Riverrun is a plantation and as such has 152 slaves.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And Claire just can't.
Yeah.
She just can't. She's okay at first. She's excited to meet Jocasta. She seems like just a teeny tiny bit wary because those Mackenzies are crafty sons of bitches.
And we'll see that she had reason to be wary.
Oh, yeah. She is. She's a lot like...
You know who won't see it? Aunt Jocasta.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
There's this moment where...
Allison has to take an earring out. It's hurting.
It's hurt. My earrings are hurting. I just lost my train of thought. When we get to the scene... You know what? No, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for that.
Okay.
Hold on. Still taking my earrings off.
Hold on. Get them out.
Can you hear my headphones creaking?
No, I think only you can. I can hear you taking the earring out. That's interesting.
That is my earring, guys. Okay. So there are 152 slaves.
And does that come out in their first conversation, or is it no?
But pretty shortly thereafter.
That's when they're out on the porch.
They're mostly worried about what Jamie is very worried about what it's going to be like. He hasn't seen this woman since he was a teeny tiny child.
And the first thing she says to him is, "You're a giant." Which, by the way, that's before we find out she's blind. Is it just that she can
she hugs
feel?
him.
Right. So she puts her arm around him, and
she's
is like, "It's still going."
Yep. But she does say, "You had the most beautiful crop of red hair, and nobody blinks an eye, bats an eye, blats an eye."
Especially not her. Okay, I'm going to stop. It's just too easy.
So, I to answer your question, why did she look so sad? I think she had a sister that she loved. Her sister died. And now her sister's child is standing in front of her and she can't actually see him.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great point.
And he can see her and says, it's my mother's smile, my mother's whatever.
I will say when she said the thing about the most beautiful crop of red hair that I laughed out loud, and I laughed for so long that Allison had to rewind the thing to go back because I was laughing at the wig. It wasn't as bad as a lot of y'all said, by the way, but it's pretty bad.
I don't love the bangs.
Yeah, they just look kind of like oily and just
I think
like
maybe
that.
they're supposed to look like sweaty.
Yeah, or like I don't know, is it supposed to age him or something?
I think it's just, it has to be just how the hair was worn. Maybe he's just got a really giant forehead.
He does have a 5 head.
Like a Christina Ricci head.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to de-emphasize.
So they go back to the house. It's a beautiful fucking house.
And she's immediately like, your family, you can stay as long as you
can
need.
stay
No,
whatever.
seriously, you stay. You really should stay as long as you need.
Seriously.
Like,
have a
why
seat.
don't you stay?
Why don't you just take this
We're
big
family.
bedroom?
I don't know if we're family. Just please,
stay.
Just stay. You should stay.
Stay. It's cool.
Just a little bit
if you
longer.
stay. It's cool if you stay. Did I mention it's cool if you stay? And at first you're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, she's a nice aunt.
She also right away is like, and people here are just going to love you. They're going to love you right after they meet you at this party I'm going to be throwing in your honor in fucking 5 minutes. See you in
Bumpkin
5.
party.
So as they're having this conversation, all of a sudden, Jocasta is like, oh, Lord, that's a terrible fucking smell.
Oh, yeah. Oh, goodness. And she smells it before anyone else, obviously, because she did mention this, that her other senses are very heightened since she lost
There's
her
a really
sight.
good line about, I have hearing that would be the envy of any gossip and a way of telling truth from lies, which we see. She's really fucking clever and crafty.
So fucking Rollo got hosed. Welcome to America, Rollo.
Squirted a foul liquid out of its anus or arse.
Arse.
But no, I think it's anus because later he says it smelling like the devil's arse.
Yeah. Did he say, he did say anus, and then he was like, it looked like a badger. It's like, oh, you've never seen a skunk before.
But black and white striped.
So are skunks indigenous to North America? I guess they are.
Well, there aren't any in Scotland.
I guess not. Well, I mean, it's an island nation.
In Scotland, they're called mech skunks.
Oh, man.
We miss you, Janine.
Oh,
He's
man.
not going to listen.
No, he never would. That was good, though.
Well, because, we used to talk shit about Kevin, assuming he didn't listen. And then he did. Maybe he'll listen. Janine, if you're there, clap twice. Anyway.
So skunk got him. And then I wrote a little note here that says, in our neighborhood, but we already covered our scuppy. We've met Ulysses, and that is Aunt Jocasta's main servant, the man that's always with her. That's like kind of her body man, like always putting things where, like you said, where she can reach them, or telling her things, or like letting her know, like he's her eyes, basically.
There's this, there is a really great description in the books when Claire is sort of watching him, and he'll see that she's reaching for something and will put it out right before she reaches for it. He knows where everything goes so that she can move around mostly without him because he just like manages her path. It's very cool. Except for the fact that he's a slave.
A slave. And then they are shown to their guest bedroom, and there are 2 more slaves in there, Phaedra and Mary. And Claire immediately is like, "Don't call me Claire." And that freaks them right out because they are scared of what will happen to them if they do. And Claire has absolutely no idea of the repercussions or what could happen to people.
But she can tell that something is wrong. So then she says, Mistress Claire. And they're all still like, okay.
And Ulysses is in the background like, You can just see that Ulysses is a little wary.
Yes.
As everyone would be. And then at right before they were shown to their bedroom, Aunt Jocasta said, "Oh, I know somebody can deal with your skunk problem. That's John Quincy Myers, who we already briefly touched on, who is the Hagrid of Riverrun we discussed." And he tells Ian that all Rollo has to do is take a bath in vinegar.
Yeah. So they give old Rollo a nice bath and vinegar and have a little conversation about the native populists.
Yeah.
Where Ian is like, first he's like, I hear they cut your heart out and eat it with their hands. And Myers is like, no, they do scalp people sometimes, but no, that's fucking nuts. And Ian is like, oh, yeah, of course that's nuts. He's like, they view them as outsiders and they come to loggerheads. And Ian is like, oh, that sounds like the Campbells and the Murrays. They don't sound that different from Highlanders. And Myers is like, that's a good way of thinking about it, lad. And we see in that moment, Ian gets a little bit more thoughtful than every other fucking person on the goddamn continent.
Exactly.
He's just like,
just a little bit more.
So you mean like they just live here and they're just people who live here. And then we just showed up and now we live here, but they lived here first, basically? Which will become a whole thing for Ian. Ian is very progressive.
We'll see. I believe it, though.
He is. Bless him.
And then there's some dude at Riverrun, Lieutenant Wolf.
Why do people say lieutenant?
I don't know. That's maybe something we would have Janine here to look that up. I don't have anything.
Siri, Google, why do people say lieutenant?
Why do people say lieutenant? Is it not just lieutenant, but pronounced lieutenant?
I mean, it is
it
lieutenant, but why do they say lieutenant?
Is it?
Okay, I found this on the web for why do people say lieutenant.
It worked. Hold on. We're about to find an answer. Siri, who the fuck needs Janine? Just kidding. From The Guardian. Why exactly do the British say lieutenant as lieutenant? First response from Mark Dallas, London, UK. Well, how deaf yef say lieutenant?
I love you, Mark, whoever you are.
The word, this is Richard Thompson, Allerød, Denmark. The word was originally two Latin terms, locum, meaning in place of, and teneris, meaning holding. Together, the phrase applied to anyone holding in place of someone else. Over time, the word locum evolved into the French lieu, which is pronounced in French as it is spelled. It is possible that when the English heard the French pronounce the compound word lieutenant, they perceived a slurring, in which they heard as a V or F sound between the first and second syllables. Most English-speaking nations, with the exception of the United States, still pronounce the word as though there is an F in it.
As in lieutenant.
Further response, nomad from London, England, because it's the correct pronunciation.
Ooh, snaps. Hot take.
Very hot take. Anyway, Lieutenant
Wolf.
Leonard.
Oh, God.
Okay,
this
so,
guy's a douche.
Yes. Lieutenant Wolf will be very important moving forward.
Well, he's obviously the guy that's had Aunt Jocasta's ear for a long time and has been trading her what did she say? Tobacco, indigo, all this shit
on behalf
she's growing.
of a contract with the Royal Navy.
Right.
So like a big part of their money
is British, which I'm sure we could see a little bit rankled Jamie a little bit. Like he was not happy about that. But
because he's like, a little birdie told me that you should plant wheat. Muff, muff, muff. I'm so important. And Jocasta's like, and Jamie goes, no.
Dummy. You dumb.
You're really dumb. If you do that, you'll get a bushel of regret. Jamie coming in fast with the dad jokes. Mm-hmm. Man, a guy has 2 kids that he can't have any fucking contact with, and all of a sudden,
dad jokes abound.
Yeah.
So it's clear that Lieutenant Wolf is trying to I'm not going to say he's trying to get in Aunt Jocasta's breeches, but he is definitely he's been sniffing around.
There's like a power play.
Mm-hmm. And Jamie is like, you need to understand that if you plant that wheat down by the river, it's going to flood out. You need drier land. It would be better for rice. And then Aunt Jocasta's all like, yes, rice fetches a higher price. Plus, then I could feed my slaves. And you're like, oh, Aunt Jocasta, God damn it. And then
it is better than not feeding them.
Well, of course. Well, but she could feed them cheaper is her point. And then Lieutenant Wolf is all like, who's this redheaded drink of water?
I'll come back when you're not entertaining kin.
Yeah. Ooh, woof. Well, guess what? He's here for a while. And it's funny that, in Jocasta's mind.
Yeah.
And Jocasta, I think, played that perfectly because she did exactly what she wanted to do, which was to set Jamie up as a voice of power in her house, which we're about to find out she's really following through with. And then he leaves and something happens, and then she says women can't talk out loud in front of people. Or like, people don't take me seriously or something.
No, she doesn't actually say that. That's all shit that I told you that's in the books.
No, she did say something like coming from a woman.
Oh, yeah.
It's
It's
not-
like alluded to. Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
It's not as
There are
heated.
matters that in which a woman won't be listened to.
Right.
She's talking about her partnership with her late husband, Hector Cameron, who always consulted her on everything, and now he's dead, and people will just like rush right over her. Also in this, they're touring and they're talking about the growth and stuff, and you can see that Claire is very upset. We've got some shots of her looking out over into the fields, and there are slaves working the fields, and we get one very menacing shot of an overseer who is a real son of a bitch. Quote, trademark, Claire Fraser. And they have a conversation about, briefly, that's like, oh no, that comes later, right? No, what does she say on the porch before Wolf comes in? What's the
Was that
exchange that
before
Claire
Wolf?
has? Because they have another exchange when she's getting fitted in that dress.
Oh, the one when she's getting fitted in the dress is the "Are you a Quaker?"
Yes.
When I was like, take it.
Yeah.
But no, she does have a conversation with her on the porch about it because she sees them working, and then asks her about it, and Jocasta tries to, well, in her mind, is defending herself, saying, my slaves love it here. And it's like, oh, you come on.
She says,
Okay.
I realized a long time ago that they're more productive if they're treated with benevolence, and almost none of them had tried to run away. She also mentions that she buys her slaves in lots so that she isn't
Families stay
separating parents from children. And that is all very well and good, but it's still fucking slavery.
Right.
And you can see Claire being like, yeah. So?
But did they have any say in the matter? What do you think they thought?
Yeah, because Jocasta says, oh, well, I think of some of them as friends. And Claire's basically like,
What do
I
you
wonder
think
what
they
they think.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, Claire's right.
And also a terrible time traveler.
And just really horrible time traveler.
Yes, a really, really bad time traveler. So then they have to get all fitted up.
Yeah, they got to get fancy for the bumpkin gala.
The bumpkin gala?
That's what I'm going to call it.
I mean, those were some rich ass people.
I know, but it's basically out in the middle of nowhere. Is that the bumpkin gala?
Yokels?
Can you imagine if the Duke of Sandringham was still alive and he was at that party? Please. That would be the best seat in the house, would be to sit next to his shady ass and listen to him talk about everybody as they came in. Oh,
as the saying goes, if you have nothing nice to say, come sit next to me.
it would be like that. Oh my God.
They would walk in their like very fancy coats.
And he would say, oh, those coats. Or he would say, those coats were so fashionable 10 years ago.
What a lovely coat. It would be a pity to separate it from your festering corpse.
So
I miss Simon Callow.
I'm going to call it the bumpkin gala. But
Okay.
So Jocasta has planned this big party. You know, it's funny that I guess she knew Jamie and Claire were coming.
Yeah, they wrote to her.
Okay, so she knew. So she had planned it in advance, obviously.
I think in the books she doesn't actually know. But here, yeah,
but
they
she
write
can
to her.
just throw that party together like that because she's that bitch.
Oh, she's that bitch. Yeah.
Okay, so
she is that bitch.
So she has the party.
And she also has 152 slaves.
Yeah,
So
she's also that bitch. So at the party, earlier it was mentioned because I had written down this question. What is Jocasta's relationship to Jared, the wine merchant in France?
So Jared is a Fraser. Mm-hmm. I think. Is Jared a Fraser or is Jared a Mackenzie?
Because she says something. Because she has Jared's wine. But earlier she says something.
So she makes reference. Does she have Jared's wine? She just says you brought out the good vintage.
Right. No, you're right about that. But earlier she says something to Jamie where she's like, Jared said you were the shit.
So she's corresponding with Jenny. Mm-hmm.
But she actually says Jared earlier.
Well, sure. But what she says is with your experience with Jared's wine business. So that could have come from Jenny. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Jared is a Mackenzie. Nope, Jared Fraser.
Okay, cool. Fine. So she whips out the good shit, which in my mind was Jared's wine, but obviously, no, it's just the good shit.
It's just a good port.
It's a good port. And everybody in the room is all like, ooh, the good shit. Like you can feel it go through the crowd. Because it all comes out in these beautiful coupes, and everyone's like, this is good booze. And then she's like, cheers to the new head of Riverrun, my nephew, Jamie Fraser. And Jamie's all like, what? It's like, oh, okay. She's that bitch.
She's that bitch. So basically, it's all very lovely. I thank you all for meeting my nephew and his wife and my great nephew. I have another announcement to make. You've all been wondering. And it keeps cutting to Wolf, who's like,
festering in
you've
his
all been
fucking
wondering
tatter.
who I was going to leave my big fucking beautiful house to. Well, wonder no longer. And I think she actually says that. It's going to be my nephew who's going to start acting for me immediately.
Right now. Like it just happened.
And Jamie is like, whoa, as Julie said, whoa. Cut to them upstairs, Claire and Jamie upstairs being like, the fuck?
What?
Which is when Jamie is like, yep, she's definitely
she's
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
And then
Crafty.
he says, it feels like something Colum or Dougal would have done. To which I say, well, it feels like something Colum would have done.
Yeah, Dougal wouldn't have been smart enough.
Dougal was maybe not the brightest bulb in the box.
He was.
Remember, one of Dougal's big devious plans was, I'm going to find the grieving, potentially widow of my nephew, who I tried to kill once. And I'm going to say,
if we get married,
if your husband's dead, which he definitely is, we're going to get married. And that was the extent of his plan.
well, part of it was to protect her and all that shit, but also it's just
because then he thought he could get Lallybrock.
Right, and he also, I think, probably kind of wanted a boner.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Wow.
And he is the Sonny Corleone of the show. So, as we know, he's not
and
Michael.
she is a stone cold fox.
And he's no Michael Corleone. So, no. Colum, yes. Dougal, no. Jocasta, that bitch. So, she is crafty, and I've got to know, I asked, and they didn't really talk about it. Why? Why does she want to give it up? Is it just because she's fucking old and blind and she just doesn't want to do it anymore? Or is it because men aren't listening to her and she's tired of that shit? And you said something really cool.
So this is more clear in the book. So in the next, they make it clear that she is outmaneuvering him Mackenzie style. Because this way, she has a man acting on her behalf who is like not a dumb fuck, right? Like he really knows what he's doing, who can demand more respect. Although I will say you can tell that the men who encounter Jocasta all recognize that she's formidable. Nobody talks to her like she's a little blushing bride or anything. Wolf tries though. He tries really hard. He tries to pull one over on her and Jamie is like, nope, she's that bitch, and I'm that bitch.
He tries to pull the wolf over her eyes. Yes.
But basically, in Jamie, she's got somebody who could do the job, but who showed up at her door penniless. So he needs a home and he needs money. And if he starts acting on her behalf, he will know that she has the potential to take it all away. So he would be
beholden to her,
the man that people need to see, but not a husband or someone who would then try to vie for control with her. He would be beholden to her, and would always owe her. So she would be able to retain control while also gaining control because she'd be having people actually listen to her for a fucking change. Yeah. So, so it is a very good plan. But what she was not prepared for was for Jamie and especially Claire to be like, well, I can't own slaves. I'm not doing that. So it becomes a whole thing. And yeah. And Claire does some stupid things in this episode. But saying, no, I can't own slaves is not among
one of them. So is it at the party when people run in freaking out?
No, it's after. So the next day, they meet Farquhar Campbell
Yes.
Another pretty important character who is like a pretty solid dude and a friend of Jocasta's. And Jamie wants to know, like, hey, so I have some questions about this thing that you just said you were going to do without checking me with me first. And she's like, yeah, I know. Maybe I should have checked with you, but nah. Says, I have some questions. And Farker Campbell says, well, you maybe don't look a gift horse in the mouth. And Jocasta is like, no, he's allowed to have questions. It's fine. Yeah, go ahead. Whatever.
Keep talking.
Oh, we skipped the dress fitting scene.
We did. That was right before the party. So Jocasta let Claire have one of her dresses and had Phaedra fit it to her.
And describe it.
Her
beautiful bosoms.
But she was still a little bit shady about it because she's like, I'm sure you're too tall or you're too big and nobody wants a woman that like towers over them or whatever. And Claire's like, you can't even see me. And Phaedra says something like, no, she's fair. Her skin is white as milk. And then Jocasta's all like, does she get washed out in the dress? And we're like, no, she looks great. This is Katrina Palfrey. She looks awesome.
She looks amazing.
It's fine.
She was a model first.
Thank you for this dress. But so it is funny in the bumpkin gala scene.
But then they also start talking about about Lieutenant Wolf and his romantic designs on her.
Oh, yeah.
So that comes in. Also, it's the most Phaedra has to do in this episode. Phaedra is cool. Phaedra's the tits.
I can't wait to see her again.
Yeah.
So in the bumpkin gala scene when she's wearing the dress, I did notice how it's not a wedding dress, but because it is all ivory and white, it really stands out.
Yeah.
In the rest of the crowd, and it's interesting.
They also have a conversation where they're like, she says something about, they're talking about taxes, and Claire says something, and then Ian is like, yeah, and what about the people who lived here before, and we just like strolled in and took their shit, and Lieutenant Wolf goes, how charmingly naive. And then says some shit about the Romans, and it's really gross. And then Claire is like, excuse me, and Ian is like, see ya. Bye.
That was at the bumpkin gala.
Anyway, so they're having this conversation about, Jamie's like, yeah, sure, I'll do this, but I want to free all the slaves. And then Farker Campbell is like, what?
He's like, here's how much it would cost per person. Here's what would happen. You would have all these people down your necks. It's not great.
No fucking way.
Right. And Jamie's like, but I'm not gonna.
So
there's got to be a way.
It's, well, we're going to find the money to free them all. And then it's, well, then we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z because he just will not own slaves. And then after all that, Farker is like, well, but you have to understand that people who think the way that you think, they just fucking disappear. So you're putting yourself at risk and your wife at risk and your aunt at risk and your neighbors at risk and everybody at risk for even talking this way. Mm-hmm. And you need to be aware of that because you're a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. No, it's all good. So now a wrench is thrown in the whole thing because Jamie had not, actually considered that far in advance, and obviously neither had Claire.
And it is good that this is what they think. Mm-hmm. That they think no obviously, fucking slaves.
Because that's right.
Yeah, but it's more complicated than that. Slavery is bad. Julie and I were talking about this. It's not enough to just say slavery is bad, because slavery is bad, and understatement of the fucking century, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the minimum entry level, right? Mm-hmm. Like they both know that this is wrong, and that's really important. And a step up from last year, where Jamie was like, it's not like he thought it was good, but was more concerned about and then Claire's whole thing was just about her emotional experience and whatever. Right. It wasn't active. But here, they aren't being thoughtful about fucking anything. They know it's wrong, and they're not actually bothering to educate themselves about what they can actually do about it and how they could do it without creating problems for the people they're trying to help, which actually ends up being the biggest thing this episode is about. Exactly. So as they're having this conversation, Claire and Jamie then start talking about, well, maybe Jamie leaves and they start talking about, well, maybe we should take the governor's offer instead. And Claire says, well, you have to remember, then we're going to be fighting a war. And they are both upset and frustrated. And then up rushes Ulysses and Jocasta.
And something is wrong in the fields. one of the slaves has attacked the overseer and cut his ear off. And so this means imminent death for the slave. And so everybody, and now Jamie's in charge. So they're like, get out there and deal with it. And then somebody's
Take
like,
these pistols.
you got to take these guns. And Jamie's like, I don't need the guns. And Jocasta's like, take the fucking guns. And so he takes these pistols and they ride out there and
With Farquhar.
So the overseer is very clearly a despicable human being and had his ear cut off by a slave that he hit. And then they just went ahead and put a iron hook in Rufus's stomach and hung him up from a tree, and we're just waiting for him to die. And so
While the overseer is holding like a piece of cloth to the hole where his ear used to be.
Right. So this is where Jamie and Claire ride up, is to see this. And Claire's first reaction is, Triage. He's no ear dude is obviously going to live. Hook dude is not. So I got to help him first.
Get him down. So Jamie turns the guns on the white people who are furious and they get him down. And Claire immediately realizes, I can't do anything about this here. We have to get him back to the house. So the whole reason they went was for Claire to tend to old one-ear ass face
Slave master.
And for Jamie to oversee the execution of this slave, who was supposed to be hanged. And I guess he fucking was hanged, but just not in a way it's in a lawless way. There's no judge there. Farquhar Campbell makes it very clear.
That was interesting. He comes out and he says, you should not have done this. This is beyond the law.
Yes.
And I mean, the law obviously was shitty, but Farquhar Campbell is right. This would have happened anyway. Why did you go beyond the law? And it's because the overseer is
a monster,
a terrible, horrible person who just wanted this person to suffer.
Yeah. So they rush him back to the house, and it is very obvious that all of the house slaves are terrified,
freaked out.
I mean, Mary, who we meet briefly, is like visibly sick to her stomach. Just like cannot deal. And Phaedra is having kind of a hard time focusing, but Claire gets her in motion. They put him on the table the way they would have for John Quincy Myers if they were cutting open his third ball.
Yeah.
And Claire,
hi, Sophie.
Hi, Sophie.
Sophie watched this episode with us too.
She did.
And then Claire proceeds to get Ian and Phaedra to be her triage nurses to pull this hook out of Rufus's stomach.
If you were using the Outlander drunk bingo card, you would have gotten your whiskey as medicine
for sure.
Because they're using whiskey to sterilize.
One out. We didn't pull one out to play tonight, but
another time.
I'm glad we didn't for this episode, actually.
Yeah.
So
she pulls the hook out and sort of packs the wound with gauze and
stabilizes him.
Yeah, gets him stabilized. Jocasta comes in partway through and is like, "What the hell are you doing? What the fuck?" Is obviously very upset.
Hi, just Sophie. Like Sophie. And come to find out that if a slave attacks a white person, and I'm sure that this is not a surprise to anybody, and they escape or they don't die, then retribution will be taken out on other slaves who had nothing to do with the first infraction, quote unquote.
Yeah, there's a... Hi, Sophie. You can come up if you want. I'm glad we're friends
she's
today.
Just gonna...
So, basically, the rest of the episode is this... It's Claire and Jamie just learning exactly how much trouble they've caused for everyone, including the other slaves. So, if he's not hanged, then all the slaves who were with him are going to be punished, presumably killed. If he is not hanged, then they're going to pull him to pieces, and there is a mob comes running up to the house. They're going to pull him to pieces to make an example of him for the other slaves. Whereas if he had been, and granted, like he was already being punished and executed in an incredibly inhumane way. So he was already getting far worse than the law actually, and the law is fucking terrible too, but like far worse than the law requires. But as Ulysses tells Claire in a very effective little scene.
That was, I think, my favorite scene. That and Rufus's death monologue were my two favorite things in the episode.
So it's at this point, like actually going through it in order becomes kind of hard because it was just a lot.
There's what Jamie and Claire come to find out is that there's no good answer here. They're fucked.
They know they have to hand him over by midnight, and they can't help him escape. There's nothing that they can do. They can't heal him and try to figure it out. There's nothing they can do. They've made things worse for basically everybody, including the person they were trying to help.
And then the torch-bearing mob of morons shows up, and we know that it's time is nigh, and they start breaking windows and shit, and Aunt Jocasta comes out and is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. My nephew Jamie will take care of this. We have until midnight. Fucking back the fuck up, bitches. And they're all like, rubble, the fucking assholes.
Yeah.
And then Jamie goes in and is like, Claire.
Well, we've got that first Rufus scene first. So once Rufus wakes up, Ian is still there helping, and he wants to know where he is. And Claire says, Ian says, you're in the main house. And he says, I'm not supposed to be here. And he's obviously very confused. Mm-hmm. So Claire and Ian are both trying to calm him down. Claire uses the word, she calls the overseer a son of a bitch. And Rufus looks really shocked. And Ian looks very proud and says, that's not the worst language to hear from my Auntie Claire. She uses words that would make a sailor blush. Mm-hmm. And Claire's like, well, yeah, okay, fine. That's actually true.
Whatever,
that's really true.
I do like to cuss.
I really like a swear word. Mm-hmm. Jesus H. Roosevelt Christ, Ian, stop telling on me.
Come on, Sophie. Why don't you just sit on my lap? So we get the moment where he is okay for a minute and is conscious.
And in it, they ask him about whether or not he has any family on the plantation. Mm-hmm. that they can go get. And he says no, and he starts talking about his childhood in Africa. And it is a very good scene. Where's Rufus? Jerome Holder, who plays Rufus,
was great.
Is just great. Really great.
So he talks about how he was a kid playing in his village in Africa.
In the trees.
And this boat of white men came and just took all the boys.
Bigger than anything he'd ever seen in his life.
And Ian, all of a sudden, has an understanding.
Yep.
And he is justifiably and understandably horrified. Claire, of course, not surprised.
You know, we blew over one of my favorite Claire moments in the episode, which is when it's before they know that Riverrun is going to them. They're looking out the window. And Claire is obviously upset. Mm-hmm. And she's watching the slaves in the field. And Jamie says, well, you said it gets better, right? In some amount of time, it gets better. And Claire doesn't even answer. And Katrina Balfe does such a good job in this scene because it is very obvious that, like, sure, eventually slavery is outlawed, but things stay fucked forever.
Yeah, it's
and
a
like
long
Claire,
time.
you don't even know it's the 2010s.
Right. And also it's the first time, like, you can learn those things in history books and stuff, but until you actually
see them,
it's not going to affect you as much in that way unless you have sensitivity. And I mean, obviously she did, but like seeing it is different than learning about it.
Yeah.
You know?
And the thing that I appreciate about this episode and the way it handles it is the last time in the season 3 episode, it was all about Claire's feelings. Mm-hmm. And here it is all about Claire's actions and the effect they have on people and the futility of trying to just like change this systemic
subjugation of a race of people that will continue forever.
Like, yeah. And sure, she feels things, but the feelings of the people in this story that shape the story are the fucking racists, the slave owners, right? And their hate and anger. And then the apprehension and confusion and fear and trepidation and grief of the actual people that this is affecting.
Right.
Which is, I think, why that Ulysses scene is so good and why these Rufus scenes are so good. Because Claire's feelings don't really matter that much. Her actions do. And what they end up doing is the best possible thing, and it's still fucking terrible.
It's horrible. So
But
she
Claire,
has...
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good. She has the conversation with Rufus about his childhood. Ian learns something. It's late at night. Claire's like, okay, let's call it a night. Ian, go to bed. This is the night before the torch mob shows up.
Oh, no, it's the same night. It just is later. Yeah. It's the same night. It's all one night. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like 10 p.m. or whatever. Go to bed. She goes into the kitchen to clean up, and there's Ulysses just waiting for her. And Ulysses is like, why did you do this?
Forgive me for speaking so frankly, but it would have been better if you had left him on that hook.
Because he's going to die either way, and now it will be worse.
It'll be worse for him and worse for us.
Worse for everybody. Because he will be made an example, and other people will pay. And all of a sudden, Claire realizes, has a moment of clarity, where it's like, oh, I fucked this right up. Okay. Well,
it's hard because it's like
she doesn't.
She knows she's right. She's doing the right thing,
right?
But there isn't a right thing.
There's no way out,
right? Like
she never truly understood that there was actually physically no way out for these people until she was in this thing. So maybe a little bit. We're learning something through a white woman's lens, but also if you didn't experience that, how would you ever know that feeling? How would you ever know there's no way out? There is absolutely no way out.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, what are we going to do? And Jamie's like, can you help him? Can you help him like you did Colum? Because if we don't do it, that torch mob is going to do it.
There's no way that he has to be handed over to them. And the only thing that we can do now is to try to make it better. Which is why the episode Do No Harm, episode title is so good, because they do a lot of harm in trying to do the right thing, and the episode does not argue that doing the right thing is wrong, but everybody keeps talking to them about like their foolishness and their naivete and their like lack of insight and lack of knowledge. And it really is it's not enough to just like know in your heart that something is wrong and then act without actually thinking, because you can end up doing more harm to the people you're trying to help.
And also a really canny callback to the Hippocratic Oath, because it's all part of the same thing.
Right.
So Claire realizes, she finally comes to realize, oh, you know what? You're right. And so she poisons him.
And as he's dying, she asks him to tell her about his sister. This kid.
It's so good. Jerome Holder. Great monologue.
Two great scenes.
It's the same thing that she did with what's his name when he got stabbed by the pig. And like, you know that she spent time on a battlefield and that she's seen a lot of dudes die.
Oh,
and like,
Julie, that's a great observation. It is. It's just like that.
And so she is helping him be comfortable and helping him remember something good.
Yeah.
And is this the first time that Jamie's seen her do it? Because Dougal saw her do it the first time. It was like, again, it's not the first time you've ever seen a man die. I think maybe this might be the first time that Jamie's seen her do this.
Well,
in the show, maybe not in the book. But
even in the show, I doubt it because of all of the. I don't. At
maybe
some
not
point,
because in
there's
Culloden
all
and
the
everything,
stuff at
and
all
before,
of the battles. Yeah, with the BPD.
But she has that moment where she does the thing where she knows this person is dying and does not betray any.
Yeah, when Angus dies.
Right.
Yeah.
She doesn't betray any like distress or anything. She's just there as a calming,
to do no harm
influence.
Yeah.
And then he dies after he does this beautiful monologue about his sister and his village and how they used to like to go fishing at night and how he still does that here. And he thinks about her and the moon. And then he dies. And then, oh God, you know what? I have to stop because this is not about fucking white woman tears.
It's not. But
No.
you're affected. You're allowed to be affected. It's a very powerful episode.
They
It
take
does
his
all
body
the
outside,
things that-
and then that fucking mob hangs him anyway.
You know, that scene, the thing that affected me about it so much is those. So in the books, it all takes place at the site, right? Like it's the exact same storyline, hyper condensed. She figures out that like maybe she could save him, but it's a long shot because of the gravity of his wounds and infection and all of these things. But he is probably going to die. And in an instant, Jamie is like, well, they're going to hang him. So
They're
if
gonna
you
rip him
can't
apart.
save him, maybe just see if you can make him die faster. So she does. And that is what the story is about, because they all suspect it, that she got him out of his punishment.
Oh.
So that is the sticking point, and that is what everybody is suspicious about.
Do you think that this is going to drastically change things moving forward?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
So as a result, we don't see this thing at the end. But I think what's so upsetting about the final moments, which first of all, rightly, Julian Holmes does not make it all about Claire's tears and Ian's tears and Jamie's tears and Jocasta's tears, right? Like, yes, we see them, but the camera spends way more time on the black faces on the porch, which I think is extremely important, and basically no time on the white mob. But those people were so hungry to destroy this person's body that they didn't even bother to check whether or not he was dead. So they're just
They didn't care.
They're just dragging a corpse up and stringing it up, and it's horrifying. Very well handled by Julian Holmes. I think very well adapted by Karen Campbell. Just a very effective hour of TV. And they spend a lot of time at Riverrun in the books. This is one storyline made much larger, and all the other storylines super condensed. And I think that is, we still spend some more time at Riverrun, but I think it's a choice that is going to frustrate some people. And I understand why, because it's a really interesting section of the books, and Jocasta is a very interesting character. But that's not the last we'll see of Jocasta. But I think in focusing on the thing they focused on, they actually got everything we needed to get from Riverrun. We get that Jocasta is really crafty. We get that Claire and Jamie are not going to be able to find a way to take over Riverrun and not own slaves. We get in a much more visceral way than the books do.
Yeah.
That it is impossible. We get that. We get the whole point that that there are Sophie.
That was Sophie's head underneath the table because she was trying to get my lap, but she's here now. She's cool.
Hi, kitty. We get that Jocasta is not a monster, but also that she is culpable in fucking everything that she is doing,
right.
And that Jamie and Claire are not capable of being just not monstrous slave owners. Like, they can't. So it drives them in the direction that they're in for the rest of the books.
Which is homesteading.
And it's so quick. It's just like a very effective adaptive choice, I think. I can understand why some people might be upset about it, but I just think it's really, really effective. And we'll get plenty of time with Jocasta. Jocasta doesn't go anywhere.
I mean, why would you?
It's she's around for a long time. So, which is great because Maria Doyle Kennedy is great, and I want more of her.
I had forgotten, and I know that Allison had told me this several times on the podcast, but every time I forget. I didn't watch all of Downton Abbey, but I watched enough of it to meet Mr. Bates's horrible ex-wife. played by Maria Doyle Kennedy, and she was terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Very, very good.
So this woman is indeed formidable.
Yes. I think that's it. Did we do everything?
And we did. We did not do scales. Have we done scales yet this year?
Yeah, we did scales at the bar.
Oh, that's right. We did do them at the bar.
So let's do some scales. I feel weird
This one's
doing
gonna
jokey stuff.
I don't know if I can.
Okay, well, it's going to be easy to talk about costumes because you know what? We haven't talked about production design at all. And this episode is incredible.
It's pretty good.
It feels a lot like France all of a sudden. Just like incredible costumes.
But more pumpkin-y.
But more pumpkin-y. Incredible costumes, incredible set dressing, incredible locations, no terrible CGI. No,
Well,
that's a nice bonus.
Just a little bit.
Just 30
Just
seconds.
a tiny bit.
So scales. You know what? We'll be able to revisit these costumes later because we'll do a costumes episode like we always do. But all right, scales. For costumes, on a scale of that 70s show for it's accurate, it's to the period, but kind of bumpkin-y.
Yeah.
So like,
I got you.
okay, maybe that should be the top. No, it shouldn't be the top.
That was really good costuming.
It's not going to be the top though, but
Okay.
it's too good. I've confused myself. Throw out that 70s show.
But never.
We're going to go with, how about all of the Rankin Bass Christmas movies where some of them just aren't wearing pants
Okay.
and everything has the same texture and you have no idea what the time period is.
Right.
That's the low end.
Okay.
The high end, Muppet Christmas Carol.
With Michael Caine.
With Michael Caine. Everything's really detailed. No cheeses for us Mises. They've got all the bibs and bobs and all of the... I love the Muppet Christmas Carol. Anyway, where is it on that scale?
So this
You could also, if you want the top of the scale to be that 70s show, go for it.
This is pre-Revolutionary War.
Yes.
So I always have to remember that because and rightly so, such
I
an
think they're
emphasis
8 years off.
Such an emphasis has been placed on slavery, as it should be, that I forget how much earlier it is, even though slavery was fucking 400 fucking years. So a part of me wants to go in some Civil War direction, but that was fucking 80 years hence. So the clothing was completely different. Oh, I know. This is pre-Civil War, Let's talk about period appropriateness and horror. The Witch. I did not like that movie.
I'm sorry, the itch?
The itch. I'm sorry. I need some monostat.
No, it's because
I
in
know
the
it's
logo,
two V's, right?
the
I get it.
itch.
The Vivitch. 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 I did not particularly care for the movie as a whole, but I did really appreciate the design elements of it.
Yeah.
And the costuming and the set scouting and everything was perfect. So I'm going to go with the Vivitch.
Good choice.
I really hated it at the end when it was all witches in the woods and then she just walked in. Fuck that. And then the goat, I'm sorry. If you haven't seen this movie, fuck it. Fuck that movie, fuck it.
Okay, I'm going to do... Maybe this is where I'll say that 70s show because I talked myself into that being.
There was a perfect period.
It's beautiful, but it feels really lived in. No, Mad Men. That's the highest praise I can offer.
It's very high praise.
Mad Men. Thoughtful. There's a color story. Claire stands out. Jocasta looks incredible, but also matches her home.
And kind of weirdly fades into it in a way that is echoed by her saying that people don't listen to her.
And then there's the contrast between Rufus on that white tablecloth and then Rufus on that blood red velvet blanket that's on Claire and Jamie's bed. Good shit. And then Myers' costume is perfect. John Quincy Myers' costume is just great.
He's fucking Yukon Cornelius of the American
yeah.
colonial experience. Yep. Okay.
Silver and gold, bitches. But maybe that's why Rankin Bass occurred to me.
Nothing.
All right. So we're just going to skip the coitus one because I just feel weird about it. First of all, there isn't any.
There isn't any, and also, sorry, no.
Yeah. All right. So this is the how often you would get up to get another drink. This one with episodes like this, it's always difficult because it's similar to like episodes like Faith. Or Wentworth, right?
Right.
Where there are two ways of thinking on it. It could be you need to pause it every 10 minutes to go get another drink because fuck.
God damn.
Or you just can't. So I will accept arguments for either. I'm just going to go in terms of intensity. So let's go, list the low end of the scale is going to be, the first half of Gone with the Wind.
Oh my God. Have you watched that recently?
No.
Oh, I'm going to tell you something.
Doesn't age well?
Doesn't age well.
No, I know. Well, this is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't actually acknowledge any of the black people in that movie as being human beings.
No.
I'm going to go with a different one, though. I'm going to go with... What's like a cheery... Tom Sawyer.
Woof.
Here, we're going to do a Mark Twain scale.
Ooh.
The low end. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is a really fun book. Tom Sawyer.
High-end Huckleberry Finn?
Yeah. You know what? No, we're going to go more intense. 12 Years a Slave.
Ooh.
I have Stephen Queen on the brain because I saw Widows a couple weeks ago. Very good, by the way. Widows.
Man. This is a very hard one for me to call. I mean, doy. There were moments in it that when I was reminded of Django a little bit. Obviously in Django, the plantation, all plantations are horrible, horrible, evil places. But the plantation in Django was like specifically awful. And I think that it was something more like 500 slaves. Like it was just really bad. And it was called Candyland. And that just makes me want to fucking barf. Django was a movie that I did not want to watch. And I fought for a long time. Until two black friends of mine were like, you watch this now. And there are some incredibly gruesome things that happen in that film. And sometimes with Quentin Tarantino, I'm never sure whether or not it is for a reason or for an effect. I do not think anything in this episode was for an effect. So I think maybe Django is a little bit too extreme. But I surely didn't want to get up and get a beer during Django.
Yeah.
Mostly because Jamie Foxx and Christoph Waltz were so good together. I don't know. I think I might. I don't know if I have an answer to this one.
Yeah.
I didn't get up and get a beer. People watched us. Like, you guys, what was that like? Boring? Yes.
I think that maybe the trouble we're having is that this is like, it's a specifically Outlander phenomenon, right? Because this is never actually going to compare to something like 12 Years a Slave.
No.
Right? It's never going to compare to something like Roots.
No.
But I think maybe from now on, when we get to let's see what Meryl and the mustache can pull off. Mm-hmm. This will be our scale, right? Mm-hmm. We've got poor old Temeraire on the low end. Mm-hmm. And we have Do No Harm on the high end. Mm-hmm. Because this is a way that the show can explore. It would be much worse if Outlander pretended that slavery didn't exist.
Yes.
Or
because you can't.
That we didn't fucking... I don't even... The show... Never mind. That was going to have to be spoiler section. Any of the issues relating to American settlers and Native Americans. I think maybe those episodes are just going to have to exist on this scale because it's just something else. Mm-hmm. You know what? How about this? The first 10 minutes are a pretty great typical episode of Outlander.
Right.
Once they leave for the turpentine site, it's something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Let's skip it.
Yeah, I don't think I can.
However, we can do a TGP.
All right.
Who's your pick for the TGP?
The Golden Pamplemousse is going to be, man, Rufus was real good. I think it's going to be Ulysses.
Okay.
He didn't have a lot to say this time.
That
but
one scene,
The
though.
scene that he had in the kitchen with Claire was maybe my second favorite scene. And it goes to show us a character that I know that we're going to get to know better. And he was very good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Colin McFarlane as Ulysses, which is
Such a Scottish name.
just as crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a totally great choice. I'm going to go with Rufus, with Jerome Holder, with basically, as always, an honorable mention for Katrina Balfe, who is so good and does a very, very nice job this
She did
episode.
a good job in this episode.
So does Maria Doyle Kennedy. So does John Bell.
I'm
so
gonna
does
need
Sam.
to see. I'm gonna need to see more from Maria Doyle Kennedy. I know
Really?
she's got it. I know she's got it coming.
She's fucking great.
I know she's got it coming. But this, I underwhelmed is the wrong word because this episode was so much not about her.
Yeah.
Really. I can't wait to see her really like dig in.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah, that's okay. But I know it's
be a
coming
while.
because I know how good that actor is, and I
Yeah.
know that they wouldn't have given a role to somebody that good that wouldn't pay off.
Yeah. No, she's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with Jerome Holder. And why don't we go, there's nobody to break the tie this week, so we'll just say it's tied. 2 winners this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Colin McFarlane.
Colin McFarlane
and
as
Jerome
Ulysses
Holder
and Jerome Holder as Rufus.
Yeah, great job. Also, Natalie Simpson, who plays Phaedra, is really, really good.
She did good,
So,
but I'm waiting to see more from her too. Obviously, this episode was not so much about her as it was
Yeah.
about the two men.
great. So next week, I'm going to be in the woods. Some
Is this
lightning
where
and
we're
shit.
Is this where we're starting the homesteading? The beginning of the homesteading?
I'm not going to say.
You're not going to tell me?
Sort
All right.
of.
All right.
It's, they don't. I don't think they homestead. I don't
They
remember
camp.
because
They
the
camp.
other thing. Here's the thing. They definitely woods. They
Okay.
woods. So they woods. But also, we know from the preview that we're getting a little human turtleneck action.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Brianna and Richard.
Roger.
I always
Richard
call him
is
the
the
wrong
actor,
name.
yeah.
Roger comes back.
So that is going to do it for us. As always, we would love to hear from you, especially if you are a person of color and if you are a Black person particularly, and you want to talk to us about this episode, find us. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Allison Chu. You can message us on Patreon or on Slack or on Facebook or whatever you want, because we would love to hear from you. In general, you can always reach us on Twitter at PodlanderCast. You can reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/PodlanderCast. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/PodlanderDrunkcast. If you follow us, if you subscribe on Patreon, support us on Patreon, you at most levels have access to our Slack channel where you can come in and chat about things. People have been chatting about this episode all day. I got both of us really hyped to talk about it today.
Lots of hate for Sam's wig. You know what? It's not the worst I've seen.
It's not the worst hair Sam's ever had.
No.
Because you know what? There's always that beard.
Oh my God. There's always
It's
Dunbonnet.
way better than the Dunbonnet. You Patreon supporters are just the best. We want to thank all of you as always, but particularly our supporters at the $10 and $20 levels. Their names are Trish McCrary, Jen Lander Dunklin, Jenna Polkowski, Dr. J, Lori McGuire, Ann Gavin, Katie Kirshner, Amanda Newton, Beth Locke, Mary Lumpkin, Tanner Cole, Kiki the Wise, Tara Lucchino, Crystal Nanavati, Ann Gibson, Ida with an I, Jessica Dobrovich, Aaron Yutzi, Molly Layton, Heather Moore, Ruth McCormick, Flourish Root, Friday Payton, and Kathleen Moniz. Hi, Mom. We will be back next week to talk about woods. Bye.
Bye.